Okay, so when we look at this 90-minute block that we've had for so long, clearly it just wasn't working. We weren't able to get in small group. Kids were only reading for 10 minutes at a time, which obviously we knew was a big issue. So let me show you kind of what I've done now. Seems to be working, so we'll see. First off is interactive read aloud. Instead of being from 9 to 9:30, I have it from 9 to 9:20. And that's a big one because I know research shows that interactive read aloud shouldn't go longer than 20 minutes. Kids get everything that they need then, and longer just falls apart. And so, you know, before I was very hung up on if we were having amazing conversations, you know, I didn't want to stop it. And so that's why it would always go longer and longer and longer each day. But now I make it a point to stop at 9:20, even if we're in the middle of an awesome class conversation, just making sure that the kids stop there. First of all, you hear like the, no, I don't want to stop, which is always good for engagement, but then always starting out that conversation the next day at Read Aloud, you know, brings them back in. So that's always stopping at 9:20, yeah. And then we have word work, vocab, and fluency. I do between 9:20 and 9:30. And so when I look at this, I did cut 5 minutes of it before, but I strategically have placed a lot of my vocabulary skills during Read Aloud as well. And so I don't need that separate time to be as long as it was before. This is still a work in progress for me. I'm still kind of finagling with this, but I want to get in some of these rotations that I think are really important for kids to have between 9:30 to 9:45, just short rotations, kids being on Acuity and practicing, kids being on News ELA or Smithsonian site, making sure, you know, the kids are able to get that test taking practice in that they need.
Some choice between what they can work on and things like that.
Exactly. So that could be like 15 minutes of our day. Starting my mini lesson at 9:45 now, and I make sure I start this no later than 9:45 every day. You know, with transition time, it goes about 15 minutes. And then at the end of the mini lesson, the students go back to do their independent reading but in between 10 and 10:30. So there's our 30 minutes.
Right.
And then while they're working in independent reading, I'm able to get a small group in. I usually do about a 20-minute small group between 10 and 10:20, and then I have about 10 minutes in order to progress monitor at the end of the 90-minute block each day. And so I'm leaving myself that day to do that as well. So, you know, before, if we look at our old 90 and the new 90 that I'm doing now, you know, we have this 20-minute standards practice here, which you know, it's still having that 20-minute standards practice before. There still didn't seem to ever be enough time to be able to fit everything in. And so now, you know, I look at the entire unit as a whole. So unit 2, for example, looking at 2A, 2B, and 2C, all at the beginning of the unit, rather than looking at it on a week-by-week basis and a 3-week basis here with 2A, 2B, 2C. I look at it as a whole unit, and then I plan it all out at the very beginning of the unit. So I make sure that I'm targeting every standard, and I strategically can place in these certain standards in these times that I have with my kids, rather than just a 20-minute standards practice. So, for example, I can get in standards during interactive read aloud. I can get in standards during vocab time. I can get in standards during my mini lesson, and I can get in standards during small group. And so when you look at it this way, you know, before we were being left with only 20 minutes to do standards a day. And that's why I felt like I was so overwhelmed. It wasn't enough time. I didn't feel like my kids were ready. And I just felt like Pivot was going poorly because of that. Whereas now, getting rid of that standards practice time on a daily basis and planning out a unit as a whole 9 weeks rather than 3-week increments, I'm able to strategically fit in standards throughout the entire 90 every single day.
And it sounds like that, and it looks like that this would be much more powerful than just what we have been doing.
Well, so think about it. I mean, when we were doing it before, you know, okay, boys and girls, here's the beginning of our standards time, and we would hit it and hit it and hit it, and then, okay, now it's done, close your book, put your papers away.
And there was no transfer onto anything else. It was separate.
Exactly. And so now it seems much more meaningful. They're holding on to it longer. And obviously, I'm feeling like not as rushed and overwhelmed because I'm able to fit it in where I can get it in.
This is awesome. Very powerful. So
that's good.
Very cool.